tongue of a man is a twisty thing. There are plenty of words there of every kind. This is a quote from the Iliad, composed by the blind poet Homer sometime between the 12th and 8th century BCE. For the last few years, I've been interested in knowing how we know what's real and what's really fake. There's lots of things during my study here at college. There have been lots of things that I thought was real that I found that are not real. Epic poet Homer is one example of these. Today I'm going to talk to you about Homer and his life and the facts and myths surrounding it, including the compositions of his epic poets, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Homer is from a period of time in which little facts remain, but the traditions of that time were strong enough to remain intact, even though little is known about his, little written facts remain anywhere. What we do know about Homer. Well, he was a poet from ancient Greece, and we know this because we have the literary works, the Iliad and the Odyssey, among others that historians have credited over the years. He did live, this actual dates of his life are kind of foggy. They know that he did live during the Trojan War and the time that they believed in the Greek gods. And he talks about Zeus and things like that in his works, and so we know that those are things. What time frame this actually took place from, we're not really sure. Like, it was first believed that it was in the 1200 BCE, but now we're going somewhere between 12 and 700 BCE. He was blind. He was a blind poet, and his job was an entertainer. And his job was to get up in front of people. They had their entertainment. They didn't have TVs and radios, so their entertainers had to go in front of the crowd at Times Square and Town Square or whatever, and tell stories. And they just had to make them up. So the entertainment of this time frame was the verse read aloud in the Times Square. Exaggerations had to exist because poets had to speak, and they didn't get money if the people didn't come to listen to their stories. That's how they got money. So if they weren't interested in what they said, then they wouldn't be able to get any money. They'd be homeless and broke and no food. So historians try to discredit his stories, saying that, and discredit Homer. They say that he is one of the reasons that they want to discredit him is because the stories were wrote, the literary works were wrote in different styles. And most literary figures will stick to like one style, and they won't really go all over the board. And these are kind of different. But the Iliad and the Odyssey are different, but they're not so much different that they couldn't be wrote by the same person. And I read that in my textbook called Landmarks of Humanities, and it's a second edition. According to Jeffrey Kirk, he's a writer and historian for the Encyclopedia Britannica, he said Homer must have decided to elaborate his materials not only in quality but also in length and complexity. So there are exaggerations to suggest that Homer may have not just been a person but a group of people. We have to remember that this time period was prehistory when little facts were written down. They didn't have a straight written language, so it was all different. Homer was a great literary author who will always be in our history books, and written proof may never be found of this time. The facts are distorted from this area, but because it is all oral knowledge. But it's just like when you're a little kid in school playing telephone in kindergarten. The teacher gets the kids in line and tells the kid a story in their ear, and they say, "I love M&Ms." She says that to the first kid. That kid repeats it to the next, and so on down the line. And by the end of it, the last kid says aloud what he heard, and it became, "My dog ate 12 bones." That's the same way that we're going to look at this. So it's up to you to make up your mind as to whether you decide to believe in the facts, what you can actually written prove, or what you believe is what happened. Thank you.
Yeah.
We don't feel like